Hello and welcome to the Record Club, brought to you by Record Store Day, the official charts and National Album Day, and proudly in association with Bowers Wilkins. My name's Jess Izzat, and we are excited to say that our guest today is Turin Brakes, chatting all about their new album, Spacehopper. If you've hung out with us here before, you will know that we're going to be spending the next half an hour or so talking to Ollie from Turin Brakes all about the new record. And then we're going to be putting forward some of your questions about the album for him to answer. So if you want to get involved, you have to drop us a question in the comment section below. I'll be asking a selection of them in the second half of our chat. And one lucky person who sends in a question today is going to be randomly selected to win a pair of Bowers Wilkins Season 2 over-ear noise cancelling headphones. Obviously, you don't want to miss out. The album sounds fab in them, so get your questions to us. If you haven't already got yourself a physical copy of the album, we thoroughly recommend you order one from your local record store once our chat is over. But first, let's get straight into this week's Record Club and say a big hello to Ollie from Turin Brakes. Welcome.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, very, very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I love the personal studio vibe that you've got going on. We've established that it's at the end of your garden.
It is at the end of my garden. Yeah, it's like a glorified shed really, but it is soundproof and it's very good. I get to come in here and pretend to work, but really I'm just escaping real life, which is lovely.
And I love that you've got the album, the record in particular, displayed like a gorgeous Spacehopper sunset in the background.
Yeah, I think I was talking to the artist who made it, and apparently it's an old sort of monitor, like video monitor that's like had a still taken of it, so you can actually see all the lines from the old video there, and he kind of fed all these old graphics into it and took these stills off of it. So yeah, it's kind of a good one if you grew up in the 80s like me. That will take you back.
Oh my God, amazing. And does it have his name? Is it his name in on the record so that when people buy it, they know who he is?
The guy that did it?
Yeah.
Sam Holliday's called. Yeah, he's in there. He's credited in there. He does really love it. He's a graphic designer, and he's on Instagram, but he does really nice stuff like that. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, our first question is usually from a record store, so I'm going to get to that, but I think we'll circle back to the artwork in a second. So each week on the Record Club, we like to kick things off with one of the many amazing independent record stores in the UK asking a question. And this week it comes from Crash Records in Leeds. They say, "Hi guys, we're very excited over here to hear the new album. We're curious to ask, when you first started out, did you ever think that you would get the chance to release your 10th album? It's such an achievement that so few artists and bands can get to. So congratulations."
Oh, thanks, guys. I did jokingly say at the beginning, well, not jokingly, but like kind of semi-seriously said at the very beginning I think it was to the NME when we were being interviewed by the NME on the first album. And I said, oh, Turin Brakes will be a 10 albums band. You know, I just kind of reeled that off. And I suppose it does feel kind of odd and quite significant for some reason to have gotten all the way to that number. And we're still here. We're still making records. We still feel the same about it all. And it's still a massive buzz for us to be doing it. And we're incredibly lucky. Like I don't know why things just worked out well enough for us to carry on doing it. It's incredibly hard for bands to keep going for that long. I mean, so many of our friends had to stop and go down different paths, but we just managed to kind of keep the fan base kind of fed just in the right way, and then they kept us fed, and it's been a lovely circle, and it's just, yeah, it blows our minds to still be doing it. Really, when we stop and think about it, we're like, my God, 10 albums, that's more than the Beatles. Crazy.
Wow, even just that quote is amazing from that first interview. And then like loads of things that I guess you can't really plan for. I guess you could plan, but like 10 albums deep, what is it, like over 2 decades of a career later, you've got these circular moments, even in like I don't know, the way that you've got a very nostalgic sense to this album, but then it's otherworldly with Spacehopper, the like mentions throughout the lyrics, and then you're circling back to like childhood, but actually where you are today. Honestly, I feel like someone who's at uni needs to be writing an essay about this. But yeah, thank you, Crash Records in Leeds, for your question. Okay, yeah, 10th album. What would you say you've learned from this one in particular?
A lot of the people that we met, we did some in-stores I think it was a week ago on the week of release, and we kept coming face to face with people that were actually had been listening to the record. And what was interesting was we kept hearing over and over again that people were saying, I can really hear how you've taken loads of elements from the last 9 records or from all the records you've made, and you've kind of somehow represented it as almost like a best of, but it's a new record, but you sort of taken all your strengths and kind of put them all in one place. And that was really nice to hear, because we did kind of have discussions about that a little bit when we were making it in the studio, and that idea of sort of, well, what are our favorite moments? What are our things that we want to kind of not exactly repeat, but like use for fuel? And it being the 10th album, there is this slight sense of not exactly nostalgia, but that we were ready to look back a little bit and look back at the legacy a little bit and what we'd left behind and bring things in. So I think there is that sense of like, well, this is what we've learned. Here's our conversation with the world at this point, and this is what we've learned so far. So I think if you're a long-term fan, you'll definitely notice a lot of like little Easter eggs and little references to times along the way, and that's been really good fun. It feels very involving with the fan base in that way, and it's been lovely to see people pick up on the little Easter eggs that we've left behind.
Is there one for anyone who maybe is doing it a bit backwards? They've come across this album and you think, actually, this is an Easter egg that you should know, but you won't, so you should go back to the debut?
A really obvious one for me is that there's a song on the first album called Feeling Oblivion that's like probably one of the most popular songs that we made in the fan base, at least, and live it's really popular. And it has this very simple but very kind of memorable little piano hook, and the whole album begins with that piano hook. So that piano hook became kind of a bit iconic in the world of Turin Brakes. And there's a song on this record, hang on to see which, I can't remember whereabouts it comes. It's called Old Habits. It's the second song on side B, and that song goes back to that piano hook. So like in the middle of the song, it suddenly reverts back to that original, the very first notes you heard on the very first Turin Brakes album. And the song's about sort of old habits and things being hard to let go, and so it all kind of ties in really sweetly. And that was a moment in the studio, we didn't plan it. I said to Gail over the talkback mic, can you just try out the notes of Feeling Oblivion on this part, because I think it might fit, and that would be interesting because of what we're talking about in this song. And he did it, and it was just like absolute magic. And the whole band, everyone in the studio was like, oh my god, it's the song, it comes back. And everyone, it was like a really beautiful moment of magic. So we that moment on this record is basically that, from that kind of moment. It was just lovely, where the band really came together, and it felt like, oh, we're making a record, it means something, and it was just lovely. So yeah, that would be a really obvious one, where you can hear, if you listen to the Optimist LP, the very first album we made, that hook will be the first thing you hear, and it's kind of fun how it kind of comes back in, all these years later.
Honestly, that's like a little slice of magic that not many people could ever say that they've experienced. So that's wicked. I mean, Old Habits is one that I've marked out as one of my favorites. So I was going to ask you what the catalyst was for that tune, because I don't know, I feel like I needed to hear it at the minute. So it's like one that's, even though it's about old habits, it's something that's highly relatable even now. So who was it for, or what was the catalyst for that one?
I think in a way it's a bit of a love letter to the old school Turin Brakes fan who's been telling their mates about this band for 20 years or 25 years even now, I think. And you know, it's Turin Brakes is an old habit for a lot of people. We've always been a bit of a cult band. We've At the very beginning, we kind of had about 5 minutes where we really broke through, and it was kind of, we were kind of one of the bigger bands in the country for not long at all, like for one album cycle, and then it kind of went into its own, almost like its own genre, you know, and it's stayed there ever since. So I think a lot of those fans that came along on that first couple of records, they're really diehard. They're really diehard, and so it's kind of for them, really. There's a bitter sweetness to it, because there's always that thing of like, oh, imagine if Turin Brakes had been a bigger band and a bigger deal, and we sort of were playing bigger venues, and you know, more people knew who we were. But then you often meet fans who will say quite openly, like, I'm kind of glad that you're not, because I get to come and see you in, you know, up close, and it's like, it's my private world that you've created. And so it's bittersweet, and the song is bittersweet, and it's kind of about that, hence why that plays around with some old references and breathes a bit of new life into it all.
It's so interesting hearing you speak about that and what success might look like or mean. But in this current climate, I think what you're doing is actually, I don't know, like arguably the secret to success. And I feel like you touch on it in general, the topic in Almost, right? I think that's like a message to maybe friends along the way, but like bands who didn't make it or don't
Yeah.
exist anymore. There's so many of some of my favorites which don't exist anymore. They come straight to mind. I think probably a lot of people have that. Why did you think it was important to include a song like this?
Yeah, almost to get it, like you guessed it, it is kind of almost a bit of a celebration of all those lovely bands that maybe didn't quite make it or aren't still around, but if you were into them and you love bands, it's just so lovely. Like, bands are just such a lovely thing, and it's such a positive thing to be in a band. Like, for even if you manage to make one record and put it out, to do that takes such a lot of, oh man, faith in just in you know, in the cosmos, if you like being accepted. And you have to go against so many negative voices in your own head, in your friend's head, in the other people in the band's head, in the people around you that are working it. And then beyond that, it's like, it's a bit of a psychic battleground, if you like, making a record that is, it might look easy from the outside, because you're kind of like, well, those guys are just having fun, or that, you know, that those people are just having fun. But there's always all this stuff going on, and it feels very exposing. You know, you're really putting yourself out there to be judged in a way. So that song's kind of saying, in some ways, like, it's absolutely worth it, even if it only happened once, or it fell off a cliff, you know, metaphorically speaking. It's still totally worth it. What you did is magic, and it's massively positive, and 100%, you know, worth the bother, you know. And yeah, it's easy to forget, you know, not say that stuff and just back the winning horses all the time, you know. Well, forget them, just back these guys because they're winning, and let's talk about them. But there's all these great bands and acts that kind of are maybe out of the picture slightly, but they've added to the whole picture itself, and they're influencing the other people that are being really successful and talked about. If it wasn't for those bands doing what they were doing, these guys over here probably wouldn't be doing what they're doing either. So yeah, it's just a way of like highlighting that concept, you know.
I want to talk about the track listing. I think so. With the opener, you've got the message, and setting the scene, you've got like beachy, not earthy, but like down to earth vibes. It's very like, I don't know, seagulls, you know, you're by the ocean. It's like anchoring you a little bit. And then you sort of go on like maybe more of a like warped journey. And then obviously Spacehopper, the title track. And then I was like, wait, hang on a second. Is Spacehopper about an actual Spacehopper that you're like bopping on the ground with? Or are we actually like headed out to space? I'm going through the lyrics and we've got like mentions of, I don't know, space stations and the warped guitars in Paranoid, Pace of You Paranoid. Yeah, talk to me about like track listing overall, like sonics that you wanted people, like what world you wanted them to be in, and then yeah, I mean closer, you've got like a 6 minute like huge track that is not
Yes.
usual for like a record to have like a 6 minute track when you've got these other folk and like pop sounds and stuff. Yeah, talk to me about how much you really like thought about that.
Yeah, we've there's always been a bit of a psychedelic kind of space obsessed part of this band, like sonically and lyrically. That I guess it's because it's so endless and huge, and when you slightly obsessed with sort of space and space travel and time travel and all that kind of lovely cosmic, colourful ideas that are quite fantastical. And then and then there's a very sort of, like you said, a very kind of earthy, elemental side to this band as well, where it's much more sort of feet on the ground, and it's about the earth and real fire and water stuff. And so I think those there's always like fun to be had with like, yeah, it's about a real space hopper. My kids were bouncing around on a space hopper, so I wrote a song, but it's also, the planet is a giant space hopper bouncing around in space. It's kind of like you can see it like that. That's why we had fun with this. Is it a planet? Is it a space hopper? So there's always these kind of lovely, it's not exactly a game, but it's like there's poetic license to sort of put two things together and make a third meaning. And we've always loved all that stuff, and I think the key to Turin Brakes is never to make too much sense. It's always got to be like colorful and interesting and throwing ideas in, but then allowing the listener to kind of make the sense of it for themselves. And humans are just so brilliant at doing that. And I love art that like lets you do that. I actually don't like it if I'm told what things mean too much, because I think there's a certain element of, once you've made the record or the art or whatever it is, even if you made it, it is not yours anymore. Once you put it out there, it is its own life force, and it means whatever it means to people. And actually, what you think it means is not necessarily that helpful or interesting. It's like it's just gotta do its thing and mean whatever it means to people. And I love that process of people filling in the gaps and making their own meanings for these things. So I think that's something that we always make sure, that Turin Brakes albums are always just ambiguous enough. You don't want people to feel like you're just taking the myth and like just leading them off into the dark and leaving them there. But if you can do that a little bit, good stuff happens, and that was always my favorite records to listen to, where it's like, whoa, I don't know where I am, but I want to come back. I want to come back and keep discovering what this is, So yeah, there's a lot of that going on, I think, in this band.
Yeah, you don't want to alienate people completely. We have people getting in their questions. I'm going to squeeze in one more before we get to those. So, guys, last chance to get your questions in. I always want to know, because I imagine you had lots of choice for the record. I want to know if there was a song that almost didn't make it onto this album, and then why it ended up being on here, so that fans can really, I don't know, like savor it.
Yeah, that actually one of the most popular tracks seems to be Pays to Be Paranoid, which is the second song in, and it's really it's quite it's pretty heavy, and it's like fast and heavy and quite furious in some ways. And when we were recording it, Rob, especially our drummer, he could not get his head around it at all, and he was like, this is just a mess. Isn't this a mess? And he kept asking everyone, is this just a mess? And we'd be asking our co-producer guy, is this a mess, guy? And we couldn't get perspective on it at all, because a lot of the songs are very there's no fat on them at all. They're just they do what they're going to do, and this track's much more, oh man, it's a big beast, like rolling down a hill or something, and it's messy and bonkers, and so there was a lot of debate about keeping that on, but I'm so glad we did, because that's, once we put this record out, that was the song that people kept coming up and saying, oh, that's the one, that's my favorite, so yeah, it's often the way with us. It'll often be the song we're most afraid of that we end up looking back and going, thank God we kept that going. I mean, some of our biggest hits, we had a song called Painkiller, a song called Underdog, and they're like our most sort of well-known songs that are still kind of loved by the fans to these days. They were all songs that nearly got chucked off, because I guess there's something about them that maybe we're afraid of, and that maybe that's what makes them successful. But we get confused by that, and we start thinking, that's gone too far. It's confusing. Get rid, So that happens on every record, and again, it's like fate just seems to step in sometimes. I'm glad to say we are rubbish A&R men. We would be so useless at A&Ring this band,
Well, I'm hoping that enough people bought the record, because I watched the video and I was like, oh my God, I don't have one yet, and I don't want the dog to get it. So yeah, that made me laugh. Right, we've got Aid on the Record Club's Instagram asking, did you approach songwriting or recording differently this time round?
Yeah, I did actually. This time, this is kind of, I haven't really talked about this much, but I got really ill with something called Crohn's disease, which is it's a disease of the gut, basically. And that happened just as we'd finished recording this record. And the reason why that happened, it seemed, and I spent like 3 weeks in hospital, and I've never been ill in my life, and suddenly I was like, right at the end of recording this record, I just went, oh, and ended up in a really bad way. And it turned out that I'd been I think I'd been really getting more and more stressed out about things for years, and that was kind of messing with my health. So just before we started recording, I tried out antidepressants, and I'd never tried them out before, and I'd heard they helped with anxiety disorders and things, and I'd always avoided them, but I tried them out, and they were great. They really helped me kind of be a lot more functional and to get through into the next stage of my life and things. But one thing that they seemed to, one effect they had on me, was they really seemed to rob me of my ability to write, and that kind of thing of that desire of wanting to push through and get to the other side of something. I had this kind of why bother? I don't know what it was, but there was just something missing that I'd always had previously, and I associated it with when I was taking those. So I think that made me not write normally at all. And what happened was I had to end up looking through songs that I'd found on my phone that I'd written like up to 10 years earlier, because the band were all looking, I'm kind of the main bringer of the songs in this band, and they're all looking at me like, it's time, where are the songs? We need songs, we got to make a record, let's go, where are the songs? And I'm like, I haven't written a song for like 6 months, I just can't get anything out, so I'm kind of like freaking out, looking at my phone thinking, there's got to be some good stuff in it. And I found all these old voice memos, you know, on my iPhone, and sent like about 30 of them to Gail, the other main sort of original member of the band. And he just went through them and sort of picked out like 7 or 8 that he really felt like had legs. And that was how we did it. And he sent them back to me and said, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. And I was like, great, let's work on those. Yeah, I mean, it was that. Sometimes that's what you got to do. You know, it doesn't always work out that you go, now I'm going to write a song, and you pick up your guitar and you write a song, and there you go. It's like you have to find a way. And thank God for things like iPhones, because you know they make it very easy to get ideas down. And it really showed to me, like, probably when I put those ideas on there, I thought, you know, is it even worth the bother? But like 10 years later, it pays me back, you know?
Yeah.
So this record is different because of that, because normally I'm really prolific as a writer. I'm always writing songs, you know, and that was a strange period of not being able to write. But this album came out of that strange period. So, yeah.
Stefan on the Record Club's Instagram says, what's your favorite moment on the record?
Oh man, my favorite moment on the record, for me, it's probably where on the final track called "What's Underneath," which, as you said, is like this epic kind of journey of a song. It's quite a sort of proggy rock song. It goes into this kind of magical, folky moment where all the drums drop out, everything drops out, and it's just a couple of guitars and some sounds, and a kind of almost like a little poem starts up about an underground river, and somebody's walking along a pavement in London, and underneath them is this, you know, this underground river that no one really knows about. And it's just this, it really works with the music. It's really beautiful. And yeah, I think that's my favorite moment on the record at the moment.
And we have Kate on the Record Club's YouTube who's saying, if you could play one song to an alien to represent your band, what would it be?
Oh man, that's hard. One song. I'd probably pick something like something off of our first album, like Underdog, which kind of, I think it really set out the blueprint of what we were all about, and in some ways what we still are all about. It's kind of a less is more approach to the music, you know, that it's like there is a lot of acoustic guitars, but it's not folk. It's a kind of weird amalgamation of folk, rock, and other things kind of coming together. That's why I said earlier, it's almost like it's its own genre. And I think that song probably represents that quite well. Yeah, so I'd probably go with Underdog off the first record.
Guys, look, thank you so much for your questions. That's actually all we have time for today. Make sure you get your hands on a physical copy of Spacehopper. I've actually seen a little peek of the actual vinyl and it looks amazing. Ollie, do you still have yours there?
I do, yeah. It's the actual vinyl itself is beautiful. It's a white splattered job.
That's really cool.
Yeah, really nice and psychedelic.
Yeah, wow, amazing. Yeah, so grab yourselves a physical copy of Spacehopper, pick one up from your local record store, support your local. Also, before we go, we have to announce the winner of this week's Bowers Wilkins wireless headphones prize. We have Aid on the Record Club's Instagram. So Aid, please slide into the Record Club's DMs. We'll get those headphones to you. And yeah, my name is Jess Izzat. Thank you everyone for joining us and sending in your questions. This plus all previous episodes are available to watch back on Spotify or on YouTube. I will see you for the next episode of the Record Club. But for now, Ollie from Turin Brakes, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks, Jess.